How well do you really know someone? Let's dive into that question a little deeper. How well does a wife know her husband? Or how well does a daughter know her father? Those two questions right there have people around the world wondering, did the wife of the suspected Long Island serial killer know her husband was stalking women, hunting them down, and butchering them before dumping their bodies on a lonesome stretch of beach in Long Island? Today, we're going to answer those burning questions for you. Hey everyone, thanks for being with us another week of Two Crime Newsies. I'm Jen.
Hi, I'm Tina.
This was a fun one.
This was a good one. This is what I've been waiting for and what I was hoping to see in the first documentary that we covered about the Long Island serial killer.
That show was so good that we actually did 2 parts on it. If you want more of that show, you can go back a couple of episodes. But this week, we're talking about a brand new show on Peacock called The Gilgo Beach Killer, House of Secrets. Now, it's a 3-part documentary, but in case you don't have time to go and watch it yourself, you've got us.
Also, that means this is going to be a real long episode.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to say there's an interesting side note to this story. This show is a Peacock original, and the executive producer is none other than Curtis Jackson III, also known as rapper 50 Cent. I had to say 50 because that's how he says it.
Right.
I absolutely used to love 50 Cent. He was super popular in my prime clubbing era. Not that I, did very much of that. I just absolutely love him. He's like, go shorty, it's your birthday. We gonna party like it's your birthday.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, totally. I didn't even notice that, Jen, until I read your notes and I went back and looked, and there it is. It's the first little, what would you call it?
In the opening credits.
Executive producer, which means, Jen, 50 Cent is a true crimer.
I love it. He's a crimey.
He is. Thank you, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent, for this documentary. This, again, is what we've been waiting for. I want to know what the family thinks. I want to know what the wife is thinking. I want to know the daughter's reaction to all of this nonsense about their husband and father being an alleged serial killer.
Before we get started, I just want to say that we're going to talk about some graphic stuff, as you can imagine. So it's not meant for littles, that kind of thing. Let's get into the show. So the show starts out with the producer asking Asa. Now, Asa is Rex Heuermann's wife, and Rex Heuermann is the alleged Long Island serial killer. Now, the producer says to Asa, he goes, Asa, your husband of 27 years was arrested as the alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer. The prosecutors believe 7 women were murdered in your home. This is the first time you are speaking out. The question everyone keeps asking is, how could you not know? And Asa is sitting there during this interview in this cramped looking living room amongst just a whole bunch of boxes everywhere and just honestly just crap everywhere. Not literal, but it's everywhere.
Stuff.
So Asa is sitting in that cramped living room and she answers, does everyone really believe everything they hear? And when I saw her say that, I'm like, ma'am, Asa, if you ask me, when prosecutors have a mountain of evidence against somebody, I have a tendency to believe them. I mean, that's just me, but I'm just saying.
And does Asa believe everything her husband says? I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but if authorities are presenting me with a mountain of evidence that says my husband is a serial killer, I mean, I can't just dismiss it.
I feel like it's the old saying where there's some smoke, there's a fire. I feel like there's got to be something there.
You have to want to know yourself too, right?
100%.
Also, I sound a little bit giddy about this episode, right? Because we're trying to get in the heads of the wife and the daughter. This is horrible for them.
It is.
This man has put them in this awful situation. I'm not giddy about what they're going through at all. It's just the intrigue that these people were living with this serial killer.
Allegedly,
thank you. For decades.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know, or they didn't want to see it. Maybe it seems like, I don't know, but there's something so intriguing about it. And I think it's because it's so bad and wrong and against people as human. Well, it was like good humans, I suppose, who don't want to hurt other people intentionally. It's just an intriguing thing to see and to hear about. And that's why I'm excited about this. I just want to hear what they have to say.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to know. That's the first thing once somebody is apprehended who is like a suspected murderer or serial killer, whatever. I feel like the first thing anybody wants to know if that suspect has a family is, what did the wife know? You wonder, how can this person not know these things?
Yeah.
So you're like, well, if he's leaving in the middle of the night, like, where do you think he's going? Like, you have these questions.
Also a question of, what did you know? And were you a part of hiding anything? I don't think that she was, by the way. I'm just saying, like, I think that's part of the intrigue. Like, you know, what do you also know about this whole situation?
Yeah.
Anyway,
let's do a quick recap of the case. We did 2 episodes on this case, as we mentioned, and those episodes are called The Long Island Serial Killer. You can go back in our podcast and listen to them. But if you don't have time for that today, before we get into this, I'll do a quick recap of the investigation from you. The Long Island Serial Killer case is one of the most chilling and mysterious murder cases in recent history. It began in 2010 when an escort named Shannon Gilbert went missing after meeting a John at a home near Gilgo Beach on Long Island. And after her disappearance, the remains of several women, most of them known sex workers, were discovered along a stretch of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach in Long Island. And as more and more bodies were uncovered, authorities realized they were dealing with a potential serial killer who had been operating undetected for years. So for over a decade, the case remained cold until 2023, when a breakthrough led to the arrest of Rex Heuermann. Now, Heuermann is also an architect in New York City. So he's just not some Joe Schmo off the street. Like, he had a very good career in New York City. And Heuermann, who is a father and husband, was connected to the murders through cell phone records. Investigators say that Heuermann had used burner phones to contact some of the victims, and turns out data from these cell phones often pinged in areas near Heuermann's home in Massapequa Park, Long Island, around his office in Manhattan, and along his commute, which cell phone data, if you guys have been listening to our podcast for a while, I am obsessed with. I think it's fascinating. Investigators also linked him to the cases through DNA evidence. Turns out a pizza box crust Heuermann discarded in a Manhattan trash bin was collected by undercover officers in 2022. And that pizza crust right there matched a hair found on one of the victims' remains. Now, seriously, if you're out there serial killing people, pay a little more attention to your pizza crust. Like, don't go discarding it.
No, actually do discard it, because I want to know if you're a serial killer.
I guess I shouldn't be saying don't do it.
Don't be giving him tips, Jen.
Investigators also say that Heuermann looked up things about the Long Island serial killer on his home computer and searched details about the victims and their families. And in my opinion, one of the most telling clues that Heuermann is in fact the Long Island serial killer, also known as Lisk, L-I-S-K, is that when the last victim disappeared, her name was Amber Costello. When Amber Costello went missing, her roommate, Dave, gave a description of the man who had threatened Amber inside her home shortly before she went missing. Now, the suspect described by Amber Costello's roommate, Dave, matched Heuermann to a T. And Heuermann also drove the exact same vehicle which the roommate had reported to police, which was a green first-generation Chevy Avalanche. Heuermann, right now, has been charged with the deaths of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Lynn Costello, although he's also suspected of killing several more women. But he hasn't been charged with those deaths. He's since pled not guilty to these crimes and has been sitting in jail since his 2023 arrest. And now that we've recapped all that, let's dive into what Rex Heuermann's wife knew and what she didn't know. The stuff we've been waiting for.
Right. And the first episode of this series does a great job of recapping everything that you just said, Jen, especially since there's so much to this case. It's crazy that you crammed all of that into, what, maybe 2 or 3 minutes?
I feel like I'm like out of breath. I'm like...
That was really good information. And then the show, also their whole first episode is the background of this case. But the focus today is on what the family has to say, which are the last 2 episodes of the series.
Yep. So Rex Heuermann is a family man. Now, he lived in what I'm going to say is a dilapidated house in Massapequa Park, Long Island, with his wife Asa, who I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, his daughter Victoria, and his stepson Christopher. And in this docuseries that we watched on Peacock, we see a ton of family photos of Heuermann and hear from both his wife and his daughter and his stepson. The wife's name is Asa Ellerup. The show's producers ask Asa, how could you not know your husband is a serial killer? Which is the question we all want to know. Yep. And she says, know what? My husband was home here. He's a family man. They're telling me that he's been soliciting sex from sex workers. What? I don't have sex with my husband? I don't satisfy him? He comes home and he eats my dinner. It's not good enough? No. I don't believe my husband did this.
Jen, bizarre answer.
Right?
None of those thoughts seem to make sense to me. I mean, it's just a bunch of word salad. And maybe it was the way that it was edited?
I don't think it was edited. I watched so you can see little jump cuts sometimes when you edit, and I didn't see any of those. Like, it just flowed. She was just talking.
Saying those words.
Yeah.
The whole coming home and eating my dinner thing was weird. I thought maybe it was out of context, but I don't think it is. There's a clip of someone in the first episode that said something that really catches my attention. He said, with a serial killer like this, the thrill is in the kill. What really drives him is not sex, but rather the power over another human being, which is what I think she might be missing there.
We hear in the documentary, and we have heard evidence on this too, Heuermann is a massive guy. He's over 6 foot tall. He's over, I want to say 280 is what they said on one of the shows. Like, he's a big guy. And some of these women who were found, who have been linked to him, were very small women.
All of them, I think.
Yes, they were very tiny. They were very petite. And so he just towered above them. Mm-hmm. But we hear on the show from Heuermann's daughter, Victoria, who says the day her dad was arrested started like any other. It was just a normal day. She was working at her dad's office in Manhattan. And she tells us that she left work and told her dad she'd see him at home. And that night, her dad never showed up at home. Around 11 p.m., we hear that FBI was banging at the door. Can you imagine? FBI, let me in.
No, thank you.
Woo! And when they came into the house, they told the family that Heuermann was charged with murdering 3 women at the time and that he was the Gilgo beach killer. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, could you imagine? That's terrifying.
No.
And Asa tells us, no freaking way is this man going out and soliciting sex from a sex worker, killing them and dumping them on Gilgo Beach.
I also think it's interesting, Victoria, the daughter, is also working at his office.
Yeah.
So she's with him all the time. She's with him at work and with him at home. Interesting that even she didn't see anything weird.
There were no red flags.
Investigative reporter Mary Murphy was in the courtroom on July 14th, 2023, which is the day that he appeared in court, and she says he didn't react to the charges. She says it seemed like there was nothing behind his eyes, like deadness.
Makes you wonder if that's what the last thing the victims saw.
Oh, gosh. Oh, Jen.
Sorry, I had to go there.
Other words that people use to describe him here are monster, smug, emotionless. And I'm confused how Asa sees a family man, but others who are in his presence after his arrest see this cold monster. That's why we're so interested in what the families, friends, neighbors have to say about a guy like this, especially because it took so long to find him.
Decades.
How did he elude authorities for so long? How did he get away with killing this woman, allegedly, for so long? Were there signs of a monster? Did he fit the stereotypical description of a serial killer? And I think that last question is key because during the search for the Long Island serial killer in 2011, the FBI gave a profile of who they thought this guy was. I went back to our notes to get this information.
Ooh, give it to me. What'd they say?
And you wrote this in your notes, so this is taken from your notes. It said, the FBI thought that this guy was likely a white male, probably in his 40s, socially competent, but very devious. And he blends well in the community and may be a family man. Mm-hmm. They saw this.
Mm-hmm. Remember why I thought he was a family man? Because all of the crimes happened during vacation season.
Right. And they thought if he was living with his family, they were probably away, like you said, while he was committing these atrocities. And they were spot on.
Yup.
And how does she not get it?
I think it's one of those you just don't want to believe that somebody you've been with so long could be capable of something like that.
It's a scary thing to have to realize, I suppose.
I guess. Asa says on July 14th, the day after the arrest, she and her family were taken by police to a local hotel while investigators started searching through their home. And Asa says they were taking bags and bags of stuff out of their house. She says her head was spinning watching all this.
Mm-hmm. She says when she turned on the news, that's when she saw them taking stuff from her house. And one of the weird things they found in the house was a child-sized doll inside of a glass case.
We're not just talking like a little like glass tiny box or whatever that this like doll was
like a
in.
Barbie. No,
it was this ornate looking glass case that was very large, and it was just
had to have been like what, 4 foot or
at
something?
least. Yes, it was. I mean, it's not something I personally have in my home. It's not something that goes with my like aesthetic, but you know,
I don't know what aesthetic that would be.
Creepy doll
aesthetic.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen that on a TV show. It exists.
But it doesn't go with what I try to go for in my house.
Thank you, because I wouldn't be here if that was the case. Anyway, Asa looks visibly irritated when she's talking about them taking these items from her
especially
home.
the doll.
Especially the doll. And she says something really odd here when she notices the doll. She says, are they testing the doll for DNA?
Why would they test the doll for DNA?
Well, ma'am, they're probably testing everything for DNA. Okay? I don't know what she expects.
They're just taking heaps and heaps and heaps of stuff out of this house. And after 13 days of investigating, the family was allowed back into their house, and they went. They went back home. And there's a part of me that truly can't believe it. What if these things did in fact happen in there and you go back to that? But on the flip side of all this, I think about it and I'm like, it's your home. It's your safe space. It's your safe space. It allegedly was not the safe space for other people, but for you it is.
I just don't have words.
You're floored.
Yeah. We see video of media trying to talk to Asa and her son while they're outside of their house during this time, and they are upset.
Tina, they're not upset. They're pissed.
They're pissed. You're right. They're yelling at the media not to talk to them. They're sitting outside at one point crying. Why do you want people to see that?
I'm like, go in your backyard.
You know what I'm saying?
But
like,
out
don't
in
go
the
sit in the
front porch
where there's cameras in front of your face. Also, giving the middle finger to reporters. 2 of them at the same time. Now I think you're just creating a spectacle. And it's such odd behavior.
I can say, like, working in TV, like, that's the stuff you thrive to get from people because it makes for really good TV. It does. I'm sorry to say it, but it does.
I think it just makes it so much worse for them. If you truly want them to leave you alone, go inside, get out of there. They have to realize that this home is tainted. It's a possible crime scene, and it's now forever linked to an alleged serial killer. I would think they wouldn't even want to be there, especially because media is actually literally camped out there.
And not just media, too. It was the neighbors. This house became like a beacon, I feel like, for everyone.
And it looks really creepy. It's like, how could you not look at it?
Victoria, who is Heuermann's daughter, says when they got back home after the house had been raided, it was not recognizable. There were no beds, no clothes. Their bathroom sink was broken. And she says they should have deemed our house inhabitable. It was as if they were trying to leave us for dead, Victoria says.
I absolutely agree. They should definitely deem that house inhabitable. Nobody should be there. And we see pictures of what the home supposedly looked like after the raid. But in the interview with Victoria and Asa, it still looks like that.
Uh-huh.
It's still cluttered. There's boxes and stuff everywhere. Now, at some point, we find out that they're moving. This doesn't look like moving stuff to me, though. It still just looks like clutter everywhere.
In my opinion, it looks like there's just a whole bunch of crap everywhere.
It's like it's like the FBI left it like that, and they didn't move anything, is what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's like pathways through, like, I'm going to describe it like a mouse. You know, like a mouse when they go through like tunnels? Like there's like
there
tunnels.
You go with the tunnels again. Are you going to talk about mole people?
Mole people that I talked about in this. And it's a real thing, Tina. It's a real thing. But these are not mole people. These are alleged serial killers' family members.
Right.
So not mole people. Big difference there.
Also, Victoria and Asa sound angry again that their house is turned upside down. And again, in her words, she says they left them for dead. I feel like their anger, Jen, should be towards Heuermann. The reason they're in this position and that their house is no longer the home they once knew is because of him.
That's true. I can see that. I would probably be pretty ticked off. I also don't want random people in my home. I think about all germs.
Yeah, Jen. Why are the random people in the home?
Because of the husband.
Thank you.
Asa says the family needed to come home. They had a lot of sentimental stuff in the house. And as this I thought was fascinating. As they're showing this and they're saying that there's sentimental stuff in the house, they're showing strange looking banners on the wall that reminded me of like occult things. Did you catch that?
Yes, Jen, I sure did. Did you? Especially when they said they had a lot of sentimental stuff and then pan over to where there's occult looking stuff hanging on the wall.
Uh-huh. And Asa goes on to say that she feels Rex Heuermann, her husband, is here in this home.
Oh my gosh. The stuff on the wall is so creepy. A little satanic looking to me. I don't know much about that stuff.
It's like occulty.
But if I were to imagine what that stuff looked like, I think it would be that. Anyway.
I think I know a little more about that stuff than you do. And yes, I think you're...
think? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated that they're so focused on this stuff being touched and move around and broken. And they seem more concerned about their stuff than the possibility of people actually being killed in their house.
You're spot on. Heuermann's stepson, Christopher, says when he first came home, he couldn't even get in and out of the garage because everything was stacked up so high. He says investigators took a lot of things from the garage. Rex Heuermann apparently used this garage for like woodworking type stuff. Christopher, the stepson, walks around the garage showing the cameras where his dad's screwdrivers used to be, where he once had a very heavy bandsaw, he tells us, and where his dad apparently had a table saw, all of which are no longer in the garage. This scene really stood out to me because in another scene in the show, Heuermann is doing a video interview with a foreign TV station about his job. You remember this?
Yes, I do.
The reporter asked Heuermann, if he were a tool, what tool would he be?
What an interesting question.
Uh-huh. And Heuermann gets this, I don't want to say a smug look, but it's not a just general answer look. It kind of gave me a little bit of the creeps. Heuermann responds like this, and I'm going to say what he says word for word. He says, it's an interesting question. I have one tool that is pretty much used in every job, and it's actually a cabinet maker's hammer. It is persuasive enough when I need to persuade something. Sometimes I have to be the heavy framing hammer. Other times I'm the lightweight hammer. just to nudge things along.
It was a very odd response. And Victoria says her dad's job was demanding, and she could also see it affecting his mental health.
Victoria says that her dad would come home from work very frustrated at times and he needed to wind down, but he never hit any of them. The worst he would do, she says, is throw a plate into the sink.
Next, we hear from Rex's best friend, David Jimenez, and he says he's known Heuermann for 17 years. They would go to the gun range together, and he says the first time he goes to Heuermann's house, he notices it's run down, and he's also confused, like me, because the guy's an architect, and the house has never been updated. He also thinks he wanted to keep the house that way because it looked like that when he inherited it. And he says he thinks it's because of Arrested Development.
I don't know what this is.
I thought Arrested Development was just a TV show. But according to Google AI, Arrested Development refers to a situation where an individual's emotional, social, or cognitive growth is significantly delayed or it stops prematurely. So sort of like he kept it
like a time capsule.
Like a time capsule of a certain time in his life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's the creepy dude next door. In this show, we also get a deeper look into the house and the basement, also known as the vault, where it's suspected Heuermann killed and dismembered his victims' bodies. We heard that the basement had a solid steel door. When I heard that, I was like, what? What kind of basement has a solid steel door?
I can't believe that house could support a solid steel door.
We also hear that this basement area is where Heuermann kept his massive gun collection. We had mentioned this in the first 2 Long Island serial killer episodes, that Heuermann was an avid gun collector who had more than 250 guns in his home. On the show, Asa shows us the steel door, and it's pretty impressive. It reminds me of like a much smaller version of like a bank vault door.
Yes.
It has one of those like spinny closer things. So what I find incredibly interesting in this clip of the bank vault steel door down in their basement that goes into like Rex's vault area, Asa says there's a lever on the inside that you can pull so no one can get locked inside. I'm like, suspect. She made it so apparent and pointed it out that it was just this weird thing. Like, if you're trapped inside, like, you clearly can get out. Police believe that he kept his victims down there. Makes me just kind of like, woman, what are you talking about?
Weird.
Asa says there's also a space downstairs in the basement that Heuermann didn't want anyone to have access to. It's described as a secret room of sorts in this basement. You wonder if this secret room inside of this basement is the kill room.
Victoria called it a walk-in closet.
Correct.
She said she's never even seen it until after the raid. And we also hear that we won't know what investigators found in that room until the trial.
Which we're all patiently waiting for.
I am anxiously waiting. Yes.
Let's get into Asa and Heuermann. Now, they were married for 27 years, and before marrying Heuermann, Asa, who's originally from Iceland, had been married before, but that relationship apparently ended, and she and Heuermann got together. Asa and her son Christopher moved in with Heuermann, and then the two ended up getting married after Asa got pregnant with their daughter Victoria. And we hear on July 20th, 2023, 7 days after Heuermann's arrest, Asa filed for divorce. Heuermann then filed to have the family home turned solely over to Asa. Victoria says that they divorced to protect the family's assets. If the family lost the house, they would be homeless. We see and hear a phone call between Rex Heuermann and his wife on the show. Throughout this phone call, Asa is truly smitten. She is smiling from ear to ear.
This was fascinating.
And she almost seemed giddy throughout this call. And in the call, Heuermann says he's doing all right. They talk about what Heuermann had for dinner, and he says he ate a burger and some mashed potatoes. He tells Asa that it's going to rain tomorrow and he's going to try and get out and take a walk because he couldn't today because the jail is apparently uncoordinated. And he asks Asa in the call if he will still see her on Friday. And she is all smiles. I mean, just all smiles and says, yes, he will see her.
This is fascinating.
Uh-huh. I mean, there's clearly still love there.
Is it love or is it delusion? Here we go. Heuermann asks Asa how she's doing. And she smiles, like Jen says, and her tone is happy. And she says, I'm doing great. I'm doing great? This is not great.
Not at all.
This is far, far from great. I have secondhand embarrassment when I'm watching this. Mm-hmm. Because how can they ignore the elephant in the room? How are you not freaking out on him and asking him what the heck is happening here?
Yep.
Even in the Casey Anthony case, we hear and see the phone calls between her and her parents. And even they are bombarding her with questions, trying to find out what's going on. Did you do something? Give us some answers. And they're not even trying to get anything from him.
They really aren't. The family is just happy to be talking to him. They want to know what he had for dinner. It's just like an ordinary phone call. Meanwhile, I think you're 100% right. We have seen it time and time again when family members have these calls with suspects who are allegedly accused of doing horrible things. The family members are like, did you do it? Where's this? Where's the body? Where's, tell me the last time you saw so-and-so. Like, you want to know answers. Mm-hmm. And they are just content with, oh, he's going to go for a walk. And, oh, he had a burger with mashed potatoes. And just...
She is in another world.
It was just very uncomfortable to watch for me.
Yes.
Asa says she talks to Heuermann all the time, but he only has a certain amount of time that he can use the phone. So she doesn't talk to him about things that could hurt him. And when asked by producers what she means by saying what could hurt him, Asa says, telling him I love him.
Ma'am, what about how he's hurt you and your family?
Uh-huh.
How he allegedly has hurt and killed women and hurt so many other families who are missing their children.
Spot on, Tina.
How in the world can you be so protective of this person who is accused of doing the worst things imaginable?
And not just once. Multiple times.
Right.
Asa says Heuermann was not seeing prostitutes and that he is a family man. Asa says that she would need to hear it from Heuermann face to face that he killed these girls in order for her to believe him. And I'm just like, come on, lady. On the show, we see Asa getting ready for a court appearance.
I just thought of something.
What?
Maybe that's why she doesn't ask him.
Because she doesn't want to know?
Because she doesn't want to know.
You don't think she's ever asked him, though?
No, I don't think she has.
I feel like that would be the first thing.
I would ask.
Yeah. I'd be like, dude, what the F?
Did you do this?
Yeah, that would be the literal of my conversation.
The first thing you said, like, there's not even a hey, hi.
No.
Did you do this?
Yeah. On the show, we see Asa getting ready for a court appearance where she sees Heuermann for the first time since his arrest. And we hear that during this court appearance, they looked at each other and Asa was smiling at her husband. On the show, she says she liked seeing him and she doesn't see him as a serial killer. I feel like it's clear. She still loves this man. You are like cringing.
I'm so cringing. This is awful.
It is. I feel like after he was arrested for supposedly killing several people, that love switch is like a light switch, right? It would have been switched into the off position, in my opinion, very quickly. Mm-hmm. If you go back and listen to our episodes 1 and 2 about the Long Island serial killer, you'll hear that police believe he was killing these women while the family was out of town on vacations. And in this show, this Peacock show, we hear Asa saying that she doesn't believe he's capable of doing it.
Oh, Also, when she's talking about how she doesn't believe he's a serial killer and how she doesn't believe he's capable of doing these things, she's talking to her attorney. And she's telling him this, and the look on his face
It's great.
is priceless. He just looks stunned. He looks like he's trying to hold back what he really wants to say. And I think he knows that there's a little delusion in this woman in this moment.
One of the victims, Melissa Bartholomew, was last seen in July of 2009. And we hear from Asa and the kids that during this time, the three of them, Asa and her two children, were in Iceland. And Heuermann ended up remodeling the bathroom at their home. Okay, that's a little bizarre. Asa says on July 10th, 2009, she and the kids planned a trip to Iceland for 5 weeks. And Heuermann was working, we hear, during that time.
Right. So suddenly you decided to remodel something. On the inside.
Not the outside.
Not the outside. A very interesting room to remodel.
Yep. Asa says while she was in Iceland with the kids, Heuermann called her and said that he had made a big mess in the house and he had a big surprise for her when she gets home. Apparently, he told her that he had ripped up the entire bathroom and thrown everything out from top to bottom. And Asa on the show says the next day after this phone call, Heuermann flew to Iceland.
Jen, I'd have so many flashbacks if this was in my world, of thinking of the time that I was in Iceland and he completely remodeled everything from top to bottom.
I feel like that is a red flag right there.
How is it not a red flag for her? That would be a huge, glaring...
Because at this point, while she's having these flashbacks, think about it. You know that this woman disappeared on this day. And then you get a phone call saying, hey, honey, by the way, I made a big mess. I ripped out the entire bathroom.
Asa is sitting in the bathroom, by the way, explaining to the camera how frustrated she is that the investigators tore apart her bathroom looking for trace evidence.
How dare them?
She's sitting on the toilet, I'm assuming. I don't know. I'm not sure. But she's talking about how investigators are assuming one of the victims may have been held hostage in that bathroom. And she's speaking so matter-of-factly about it while she's sitting in there.
In that room.
I would be horrified.
100%.
I wouldn't want to step foot in that room.
I wouldn't want to be in the house.
No.
I don't think you could get me to go back into the house. If I even suspected one of those terrible things happened in my house, nope.
It's so dark in there too. Like there's so much darkness everywhere in that home, Like turn on some lights. Open a window.
I thought you were talking about like the occulty things on the wall.
That too. I mean, yeah.
We hear on the show that a week after Melissa Bartholomew went missing, her little sister started getting phone calls from the person who had allegedly taken her. And we hear that once Heuermann left the United States to go to Iceland to see Asa and their kids, the calls stopped.
Oh my gosh, the pieces that are being put together right now, how they have records of this timeline is incredible. It would take me forever to figure out what days that I left on my last vacation. I don't know how I'd figure it out. Maybe I'd have to go search for plane tickets in my email. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you when the last time. I don't know. I know I went somewhere on vacation. I know it was, kind of warm. I couldn't even tell you what month it was. I don't know.
I love it. This is why I love you, Tina. Next, we hear about Megan Waterman, who went missing on June 6th of 2010. Victoria says 2 days before that day of June 6, 2010, she, her mom, and her brother had visited Six Flags in Maryland. Heuermann, meanwhile, had stayed at home. Victoria says that investigators allege that 2 days after they went on vacation, that June 6, 2010, her dad murdered Megan Waterman while the family was on holiday.
It's too coincidental.
Agreed.
Asa says Heuermann doesn't do roller coasters or water slides because of motion sickness. I mean, neither do I.
You don't.
I don't either, but that doesn't stop me from going to theme parks with my family. I go to spend time with them. My mom doesn't do roller coasters. It didn't stop her from coming with us. How is she just dismissing all of the red flags?
The producers asked Victoria if she thinks it was just a coincidence that these women went missing while they always seem to be on family vacations. And
I can't.
Right? Victoria says she's not sure and she doesn't know if it did or did not happen. And Victoria says at that time she was only 13 years old. Asa, meanwhile, says she's convinced the man they're looking for is not a family man. This whole thing it baffled me. I was like befuddled. Asa says it's somebody who doesn't take their kids on vacation because they don't have kids. What? What, Asa? Are you serious? To me, this makes perfect sense. Your family, your wife, your kids go out of town. You use that time to kill people. And
Allegedly,
thank you. And then they come home. Life goes back to normal for a while. Your family goes on holiday again. You then allegedly kill a couple more people. They come home. Life goes on. Like, to me, this makes sense. But
it made sense to the FBI.
Apparently so.
This is why she's not an investigator.
At this point, I think she's like love struck. It reminds me of those Garfield suction cats. You remember those from like the 90s? You know, the ones like she's like love struck. Like these Garfield cats would be in the like windows of cars. Like, you know which one I'm talking about? Like they're like love stuck to the windows. You know?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that is Asa to me.
I can see the face of the cat.
Yes, so in my mind, Heuermann is the glass and Asa is the cat.
What an interesting comparison.
That's what came into my mind while she's saying these things. Did that not come to your mind?
No, that didn't come to my mind, but I can picture it, you know, when you're driving down the highway and you're seeing like the cat stuck on the window.
That to me is their relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I agree with you. I just wouldn't have thought of it.
This is what you have me, Tina.
Yeah, true.
And we hear in 2024, Heuermann was also indicted with Melissa Brainerd Barnes' murder. We hear on the show that there's nuclear DNA in the case of Melissa Brainerd Barnes. We hear that one hair is tied to him, 3 hairs are tied to Asa, and turns out one hair is tied to Victoria. And that hair had been on the body of Amber Costello, the last victim.
Yep.
Literally, hair on the victim's body was linked to the family.
That's hard to deny.
July 2007, we hear that Asa took her kids on vacation in Atlantic City. So Asa says that police are alleging her husband went to work, solicited sex from a sex worker, then went home, made plans, picked up the sex worker, killed the sex worker, dumped them, turned around, and went to Atlantic City to come see his wife and kids. Asa says it's bullshit. To me, Asa, no, it's not. I feel like that's a pretty straightforward scenario of how this could have happened. He goes to work, he takes the train home, he meets up with the sex worker, he allegedly kills her, dumps her, goes to Atlantic City. In my mind, I feel like it's also a pretty decent cover. You then go to the holiday and meet up with your family.
Also, what is she saying? Like, is she saying he's kind of a low energy dude and he doesn't normally, like, he can't do all of those things in one day? Like, I don't understand what her disbelief.
Victoria, meanwhile, says she's on the fence about her dad's guilt or innocence. Victoria says she was 10, 12, and 13 when these girls were murdered. She says she was in school, which takes up a good chunk of the day, and then she was home or was doing after-school activities. Victoria says that that's why she would not know anything. She finds it hard to believe her dad could do this. Victoria states her dad, Heuermann, was around a lot, and she says by a lot she means about 90% of the time, but there's also that 10% chance of the time when he is not around. And to me, I'm like, smart girl. Like, you kind of are.
The wheels are turning.
They are. They're turning around in that mind.
Victoria also says that she feels humiliated with the media attention, and she doesn't feel like a person. I don't think she should feel humiliated. I do think that she should want answers, and I think that she deserves answers from her father. She's not the monster. He is the monster, allegedly.
I do feel bad for her.
I feel terrible for her, but this isn't her fault.
Agreed. We hear that over 400 devices, like computers, cell phones, etc., were seized from Heuermann's home and office. And we dive deep into some of the graphic, and I mean super graphic things that investigators say they recovered in our second episode of the Long Island serial killer. I'm not going to go into as much detail as I did on that episode today. So if you want to know more about what was found, you can go back to and listen to the second Lisk episode.
Right. A reporter named Salem Alger has an interesting line in here. He says, it wasn't just what they found that was alarming. It's what they couldn't find. Because he had search history for wiping and erasing data from his computers. And they had to bring in forensic extractors to find out what he deleted.
And by he, Tina means Heuermann.
Thank you, Heuermann.
One of the things that investigators say they recovered from Heuermann's computer was a hunt kill list, also known as a planning document. We called it his manifesto in our previous episode, which outlined all the things needed to kill someone and how to get away with it. 10 months after Heuermann's arrest, investigators went back to search the house, and then they linked him to the 1993 murder of Sandra Castilla and the murder and dismemberment of Jessica Taylor. That's when investigators learned that Heuermann had allegedly been murdering women for more than 30 years. Remember this, okay? Heuermann and Asa have been married 27 years. So he is accused of killing people while they're married.
And before.
We hear on the show that Heuermann kept a date book on his Palm Pilot of his happenings from 2003. And we know that Jessica Taylor was last seen on July 21st of 2003. So police started cross-referencing, we hear, Heuermann's date book with the phone records from when Jessica Taylor went missing. We're told the day before Jessica Taylor disappeared, Asa and her kids went on a 1-week trip to Vermont. He's home by himself again. Victoria says that her dad didn't come on the trip with them to Vermont because he had to stay home and work. Victoria says that it's hard to believe these allegations, that while she and her mom and her brother were on holiday, her dad was home murdering and dismembering women, possibly in their house.
Victoria says her dad called them multiple times per day while they were gone. It's like a double life. Acting like a normal father and a husband, and then being a monster while they're away.
I also feel like it's got to be exhausting.
I don't know. For a normal person, yes.
True.
I don't think for a psychopath. I think this is just the way they're wired. Victoria also says something interesting here. She says it never occurred to her that he was calling so much to maybe check to make sure that they weren't coming home early. I didn't think about that.
I didn't think about that either. That's a good point, though.
That's an excellent point.
We're told on the show by investigative journalist Mary Murphy that on that day, Heuermann visited a gun club near his home, which is also located very close to the area where Jessica Taylor's remains were found. On the show, Murphy wonders if Heuermann was in that area scouting where to dump Jessica Taylor's body one last time before murdering her. The next day, Jessica Taylor went missing. Is he going out and just driving through this like wooded area being like, hey, right over there, that's a good spot for it? And then the next day, while his family is still on holiday, he goes out, grabs her, murders her, allegedly, dumps her body. We hear that a few days after Jessica Taylor went missing, a witness saw a dark-colored Chevy pickup truck backing into the woods, and the next day, Jessica Taylor's body was found in that area. Now remember, Heuermann at the time drove a dark green Chevy Avalanche. July 13th of 2024, 1 year after his arrest, Asa's attorney holds a press conference outside of her house, and we get to see this press conference on the Peacock show. We hear from Asa that day as she's talking to her attorney inside the house after the press conference. Her attorney asks her, and I'm going to read this word for word. The allegation is that when you married Heuermann, he'd already committed a homicide. Had you had any knowledge of that, you wouldn't have married this man and chose to have children with him, correct? To which Asa replies, no. There's no abnormal behavior that I ever actually noticed. And if there was any knowledge at all, some unusual behavior in that man, I would have walked out of the door.
Jen, a press conference. This was weird.
I find it very odd.
It was the 1 year after his arrest that they held this press conference outside of the home.
Uh-huh.
What was the point of it?
I have no idea. And that's not addressed on the show either. It's just, hey, it's the 1 year anniversary of him being locked up, so let's just hold a press conference?
It was so bizarre to me.
We hear there's apparently a third search of the house in which the 400 devices were removed. Investigators focused very heavily on the basement, which is where it's suspected the murders happened. We hear from Asa's attorney on this show. His name is Robert Macedonio. That several panels were taken out, ceiling tiles were removed, and then a lot of rafters were taken out by police. In the basement, as you can imagine, they were looking for DNA to prove that these women had been in Heuermann's basement. In the show, we see Asa in the basement with Victoria. Asa's attorney is also there, and another woman named Janine Puglisi, who is identified as a legal aid for Asa, who reads the planning document to Asa and Victoria in the basement where these things allegedly occurred. She reads the suspected kill list to them. It's just baffling.
I think this is really interesting how Asa's attorney is carefully explaining to both Asa and Victoria why their home was torn apart. Kind of like he's trying to get them to comprehend what's happening and helping them to put the puzzle pieces together. In one instance, he talks about how Heuermann's planning documents mention using push pins instead of tape to avoid having a hair or any kind of evidence on a piece of tape. So the attorney takes a push pin and demonstrates how it could possibly be used to hold a tarp to a ceiling tile. He gets it.
100% he does.
And this is just my opinion, but I think he sees that there is way too much evidence against Heuermann. And I think he's really trying to help Asa and Victoria see it as well.
I think you're right. Victoria reads about one of the entries of this planning document, and it says, a hard point in the ceiling that supports the weight of an individual being suspended off the ground. Okay, I want you to really think about this, okay? A hard point in the ceiling which supports the weight of an individual being suspended off the ground. That is written in this planning document, okay? Why would anyone in a document that also has things about tarps and push pins and ceilings and all this kind of stuff, why would there be anything about suspending a person off the ground from a ceiling? That's strange. To which Victoria looks absolutely disgusted in this scene when that is read. Asa, meanwhile, is seen in the video watching on, and she looks confused. Truly. And for those who don't know, hardpoint refers to like sexual bondage and suspension off the ground. And it makes you wonder how sinister something so sinister could have possibly happened inside of that basement where they're standing at that moment during that interview. And during that part in the show, Asa's attorney is standing with Asa, Victoria, and Asa's legal aid person in the basement. And he says they believe Heuermann committed these homicides in this room we're standing in right now. And what does Asa do? She starts laughing and says, I don't know. That planning document is so Dexter style, something that Tina and I have talked about when we recorded episode 1 and 2 of the Long Island serial killer. Asa says it's absolutely absurd.
Exactly. And where did it come from? It came from Heuermann's computer.
Her husband's computer.
Yes. I don't see the disconnect here for her.
Yeah. Victoria says that the basement is where Heuermann's room was was growing up. And she says for him to do this in his childhood room is a little unrealistic, but it's not impossible. I feel like during this interview with Victoria, she has serious doubts about her father's innocence.
I agree. I think Victoria is also a little in shock. And she says her father must have been like a superhuman or Superman for them to not have noticed that anything was off. I mean, there were signs. A stockpile of guns. Even if the guns weren't his murder weapon, it's weird. The room in the basement that no one is allowed in?
That's very odd. Behind a steel door?
Behind a steel door? The house is falling apart on the exterior, but Rex chose to remodel the bathroom from completely, like tore everything apart.
Floor to ceiling.
Asa is in full denial. She says what's happening is that this is what she says. She says they are picking, making assumptions for their narrative. What does she mean? I don't know what she means when she says picking. Yes, I would definitely make an assumption that someone is a serial killer based on all this evidence.
Agreed.
She goes on to say she's known Heuermann since she was 18. She knows what the room was originally used for. And those are just allegations, the stuff that she's being presented with. Mm-hmm. And to me, it just sounds like nonsense and babble and words. You're just putting words together and making a sentence, but it's not a coherent thought. And Asa's attorney says nothing.
I feel like the fact that he's so silent says a lot.
He knows. Meanwhile, Victoria is also in the background listening and watching this, and she, to me, is looking uncomfortable.
Very much so. The producer is heard asking Asa. Now, I'm going to say the next conversation that is held with Asa, and I'm going to say it word for word, what the producer says and what Asa says. So the producer is heard asking Asa, these are all allegations, but we have to assume that anything that the prosecution is putting into these very public bail applications, these very public indictments, that they have the confidence they can back that up in court. Is it that it's not convincing, or it's that you're just reserving your right for judgment until the trial? To which Asa says, he's never said to me, don't use my computer. He's never said, no, I'm not going to give you a password. Okay, so she didn't answer the question.
Nope.
The producer says, in other words, there's never been anything off limits. To which Asa responds, there's nothing off limits from Heuermann.
The room in the basement was off limits.
Agreed.
Also, the producer sounds a bit frustrated by Asa's alleged delusion here.
When speaking to Victoria, she says she's not picking sides until she sees the evidence. The producer asks her, again, I'm going to go this verbatim. You said I need to hear it in a court of law. I need to hear it at trial. Is this about protection more so than about being convinced by evidence? To which Victoria responds, me standing my ground and wanting to see the evidence first is in a way protecting myself. But it's protecting me. It keeps my head on straight with everything. Everybody is saying, one person is saying this, she says. One person is saying that. Prosecutors saying this. But my memory says this. She says, so yeah, the fact that I'm standing my ground and I need to see the evidence is keeping my head on straight from all this. Victoria states, while pointing at the camera, keep my head straight from all this. And I feel bad for her. Like, my heart hurts for her in this scene.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to point out something here. Victoria, to me, seems very thoughtful in her responses, and she actually looks like she's taking in the question and information that's being presented to her. Her demeanor seems very natural. She seems to me that she's being honest, and I don't think that she's a bad person. I feel terrible that her father put her in this situation. But Asa, I feel, is completely different. She seems angry, hostile, like her head is in the clouds. She doesn't seem to process the information and the evidence that is being put in front of her. I see a very lucid person in Victoria and just delusion in Asa.
I can 100% see that. So the producer pushes Victoria some more as any good producer does, like, you push it. You push it, you push it as far as you think you can push it. There's a limit, obviously, but you know when you're coming close to that limit. And this producer keeps pushing Victoria, and he asks her if this is about self-preservation or is it about loyalty? To which Victoria responds, maybe with all this evidence against him, there's still some loyalty toward my dad. And to my mom, too. She says, listen, whether the world likes it or not, whether I like it or not, he's my dad. They can't take that away from me. She says she does not know what acceptance looks like. And she says acceptance to her could be, fuck it, I have to move on. And the producer asks at this point if it's possible for her to still love her dad, but he can also be guilty. To which Victoria responds, I think if he was guilty, it's going to start becoming a love-hate relationship. This is my dad, and I love him as my dad. The hate is this other side of him that came out, and going forward, I'm not going to interact with him the same way I would have if this never happened. She says both the feelings of love and hate can coexist, which I find very interesting. She's very smart.
It's a very thoughtful response.
Mm-hmm. And the way the producer pushed her to give the answer, I think, was good. Mm-hmm. I think it was overall something that she kind of, I think, needed to get off her chest too.
I agree.
And police at this point are still trying to figure out if Heuermann is responsible for more murders. On Gilgo Beach, 11 bodies have been recovered in an area very close to where the original 4 Gilgo Beach victims were found. One of the bodies found was that of an Asian male who had at the time been dressed like a woman. And we hear on the show that a search on Heuermann's computer contained the words Asian male. And I'm not going to use the third word that was searched on Heuermann's computer along with the word Asian male. I don't want to go there. But it refers to something in the LGBTQ community, as a ChatGPT search told me. I didn't know what the word meant, so I searched it. And I'm just not going to say it because it's just not kind. Mm-hmm. And we hear that investigators are looking into other places where Heuermann vacationed and seeing if any of the unsolved murder cases in those areas could be linked to him. We had covered this in the previous Long Island serial killer episode where he has vacation properties in multiple states. Police apparently in Atlantic City are looking into if Heuermann is connected to the death of 4 sex workers there who went missing in 2006. We then hear on the show that Heuermann's Chevy Avalanche pickup truck was discovered in Chester County, South Carolina, where he has property. We hear that in South Carolina, investigators are trying to figure out if Heuermann had anything to do with the disappearance of an 18-year-old who went missing in 2024. And another disappearance of a woman who went missing. Police say that the victim's daughter identified Heuermann after seeing a photo of him, as that's the last person my mom was with. Mm-hmm. And in December of 2024, not very long ago, Heuermann was charged with a 7th murder, the murder of Valerie Mack in the year 2000. And in the show, Victoria says it's hard to believe that he's this sick killer. But at the same time, I was so young, I don't know that he's not this sick killer. To me, it's one of those things that statement, so she has this internal battle, like, could he be this guy? Could he not be this guy? And it's just, it hits hard. And I feel Victoria is in this like limbo land where she loves her dad, but she loves the person she knew. And she's coming to grips with all this evidence against her dad.
Right. And I think the show does something good here. They bring in Carrie Rawson. She's the author of A Serial Killer's Daughter.
I read it. It's good.
And she is also the daughter of the BTK killer, Dennis Rader.
Who I am looking forward to doing a show on him.
There are also some similarities between Dennis Rader and Heuermann. Both led double lives. Both deceived their families for decades. Yes. And both had daughters that were 26 when these men were arrested. Carrie can empathize and relate to what Victoria is feeling and what she's going through. And I think it was so smart to bring these two women together. I think having that support from someone who's been through something that you're going through that no one else in the world can possibly understand. I think it's so helpful for Victoria for healing and to move forward.
On the show, we also hear from one of Heuermann's best friends, who Tina had mentioned earlier. They were hunting buddies. Remember those 270 plus guns that they found in the house? He's a hunter, that's for sure. So David Jimenez on the show visited Heuermann in jail. David says he told Heuermann to confess if he did it to save the families of the victims, as well as his own family. The agony of all this.
Finally, someone is going to this guy and telling him, asking him, trying to find out information if he did it.
Yep. Somebody finally wants to know. No. And David says Heuermann was very stoic and empty-shelled, he describes it, when he said all this to him. David states he thinks his best friend did it. David says he expected to hear Heuermann say, "David, I'm innocent." But that didn't come, David says. And that's when he started to think his best friend killed all of these women. I want to talk about some of the things that producers on the show hit Asa with pretty hard. I'm going to read this again verbatim of the interview. So the producers ask Asa, "Are you still asking yourself that central defining question? How could you not know?" To which Asa responds, "No, I'm not asking myself that question because I believe I would know. And until I see definitive proof, there's no way I'm going to know for sure whether or not I saw the signs." I'm giving Tina the look.
Yep.
The producer asked Asa, "Was it shocking when you read in the bail application that they discovered on your husband's digital devices a collection of violent and torture pornography going all the way back to 1994? To which Asa says, "I have no idea that they're his. They're on his devices, lady."
Yeah. Who do they belong to?
Is he gifting his computer out to random people?
Could you ask him? Could you be like, "Hey, husband, they found this crazy stuff on your computer. Is it yours?"
Right? I mean, I'm not going to just lend my computer to somebody for an evening and they're going to upload a whole bunch of stuff to my computer and then be like, "Oh, yeah, it doesn't belong to me." How stupid are you?
I'm holding it for a friend.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like any woman who accepts that answer, no.
Delusion.
Agreed. And the producer says maybe he had all these images and violent torture porn that belonged to someone else. That was on his hard drive, to which Asa does not respond. The producer asks, the DNA. Do you think that a jury would not find it compelling that over the course of 17 years, there were 7 hairs across 6 bodies that are all connected to the same family? To which Asa responds, circumstantial. I don't think so, lady. DNA doesn't lie, and that's not circumstantial.
Right. Asa's attorney is now speaking alone in front of the camera. He says he thinks Heuermann saw Asa as a weak and emotional person that fit what he needed so that he can continue his course of conduct. He goes on to say someone that was emotionally stable would have maybe caught on to some of the allegations sooner, or maybe Heuermann wouldn't have been able to get away with it for so long.
The producer asked Asa, and I'm going to read this again, word for word. Sandra Castillo, 1993. Jessica Taylor in 2003. The Gilgo 4 over the course of 2007 to 2010. 7 victims. How do you explain that pattern? That every single one of those times that your husband may have solicited sex and they just happen to get murdered, and therefore he just happens to be what? The most unlucky person ever? To which Asa smiles and says, no, I'm not going to believe anything of that information until I see it.
Asa's attorney comes in again, says she doesn't want to believe it. She saw Heuermann as her savior, who rescued her from her first marriage and took in her and her son.
The producer asked Asa, in general, remember these are all allegations. We have to assume anything that the prosecution is putting into these very public indictments. They're saying, we believe we can prove this in court, is what they're saying. To which Asa responds, we have to wait for the court case to play out. I truthfully don't think Asa will ever believe he did it, no matter what. I think even if he is found guilty, she will not believe it. It's that love struck. You have so much passion and love for somebody that you are just blindsided by their lies and all their deceptiveness, and you just accept it.
Manipulation.
Yeah.
Asa says what she wants to say to Rex is, I love you no matter what. I love you, Jen, but there's a what.
Yeah. I love you, Tina, but if you're going out and killing people, we might.
It matters.
Yeah, it does. It does. So the trial has not yet been set. On the show, we're told that prosecutors and Heuermann's defense team are at odds over a number of core issues involving the neuro-DNA evidence, remember those 7 hairs, whether the 7 cases he's accused of committing should be tried together. And this was a shocker right here. At the end of the show, we see a graphic on the screen that reads, a week before the series release, Victoria Heuermann told producers that based on publicly available facts that have been presented and explained to her, she now believes her father is most likely the Gilgo Beach killer. And in my opinion, I'm like, smart girl.
Super brave, I think, to admit to the world something so horrific about your family.
We're told on the show that Asa is currently selling her home and is moving south, and that she plans to return to Long Island for the trial. And I was like, is she moving to the South Carolina property? Like, where is she going?
Yeah.
And I was morbidly curious. I checked on Zillow for the listing of this house. So the house is located on First Avenue in Massapequa Park, Long Island, and it's currently off the market and has an estimated Zillow value of $741,500. It was built in 1956 and is 1,322 square feet. So a relatively small house, and there's only one picture available to Zillow, and I was secretly hoping for more pictures. Like, I wanted to know more.
We saw a lot. We saw a lot in those videos.
But I wanted them in the Zillow. Yeah. So Heuermann, meanwhile, is currently sitting in the Riverhead Correctional Facility in Suffolk County, New York. If he's found guilty, he faces multiple life sentences. Right now, when we release this podcast, there's no trial date set. So we will, of course, keep you posted when anything happens with this. I'm fascinated by the Long Island serial killer case.
Mm-hmm. And thank you again to 50 Cent. Very well done.
Woo-oo.
Such a good documentary.
Loved it.
Yeah.
You should definitely go watch it. It is called The Gilgo Beach Killer House of Secrets, and it's on Peacock. You can find me in the club. 50.
Well, you can find us, not in the club.
No, we're too old for that.
We're online, though. You can find us on Instagram at Two Crime Newsies.
We're on Facebook, Two Crime Newsies. You can email us, twocrimenewsies@gmail.com. And we also started our own Buy Me a Coffee. We have the link in the bottom of our podcast. If you would like to send us any kind of like monetary donation, that would be greatly appreciated. Podcasting is not easy.
So is my weekly Starbucks habit, too.
Yeah. So any little contribution would be greatly appreciated. We love doing this, and it just kind of helps us keep going.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot more work than we expected, but it's fun work.
It is.
I'm enjoying it.
And I get to spend time with you.
I know. It's our special time together.
So we've been reading those reviews and at the end of our show, and I want to say thank you so much for those who have been taking the time. I'm going to read a new review that we just received from somebody named Angie. Thank you for the comment, Angie. She says, new addition to my podcast library. Jen and Tina do a great job of keeping the listener engaged. You can tell they've done thorough reporting on the cases they cover and know what they're talking about. I listened to the episode of the Idaho murders and will definitely be listening to this pod on a regular basis. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you, Angie.
That's so awesome.
Welcome to Two Crime Newsies.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to have a cup of coffee.
Yep.
This was a good one.
I enjoyed it.
Whew, it was a lot, but it was a good one.
Agreed. It went by real fast.
I agree.
I mean, this was a lot of information, but I feel like we've only been doing this for an hour. Surely it's been 2.
No, it's been an hour and a half.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. Hey, we're doing good.
Nice.
All right. Well, we will be back with a new episode next week. We will talk to you guys then. Bye.